All right, all right. Trying to get all of my junk in order. Unfortunately, if you don't know, I had a very ridiculous thing to ever happen to me in the midst of launch day. Today's launch day of a very anticipated and aggressive challenge for myself. The launch of One Shot, One Entry. The link is down below. Go check it out. Um, just trying to find ways to just make a better impact in the world of the trading community. So if you want to support this channel, just go ahead and subscribe so that way I can continue to do what I do for y'all. And we can get this party going. All right, so I got a lot of stuff that I want to go ahead and cover. The first thing I want to do is make sure I kind of present what opportunities are out there, because the market is starting to show some signs that we could probably get some test of some key levels, and that will then give us some opportunity to make some money. Let me make sure I got the right mic. I feel like I got my mic in the wrong side. I don't think it's in surround sound. Yep, not down mixed. Okay, that should sound a little bit better. I don't know if I sounded like I was on the wrong side of your speaker. Now I'm in the right side and equal in a mono. All right. So what do we do with these tickers? All right, let's go ahead and start with Apple. Now, Apple is a very interesting one, and I want to kind of go over what I look for in itself. This I get from my wife. My wife is a really, really good trader as well. When I taught her how to trade, I literally gave her a screen that looked very similar to this, and I said, tell me what you see, right? And I like to see things in this granular form. When I first started trading, I didn't really take it that serious. So let's go ahead and get right to it. If we look at this area right here, this is what really kind of powered that whole entire upside movement, right? And what I mean by that is that look at this consolidation that's here. This consolidation is there, and we got ourselves a nice little extension to the upside since that consolidation. If you don't know, this is Liberation Day. This is where we are. So there is some profit taking that's being done here. But if we take a whole entire swing to the swing high to the swing low with proper Fibonacci, then we're talking about maybe getting, did I get that in the right spot? Yeah, I got it right spot. Maybe coming back to like 228. Very, very close to what will be the golden zone and golden ratio, and that's what I'm very curious about. So let's just go ahead and take it in its totality and try to make it make sense, right? And also, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. Send it to your friends and family. I'm always dropping gems whenever I get the opportunity. And now that I got a new PC, I am coming in hard. Look out for me to do some man on the street. I'm going to teach people how to trade while I'm in the physical outside world of South Florida. All right. So let's go ahead and get right to it. So I think this was our blow off top. There's a very strong possibility that this is our blow off top. But what do we do with this information? Well, my proprietary software that I created, which is called Market Dominance, I look at things just like this out of curiosity. I think we could come back up to 263, very possible. But the only reason why I question the 263 is because there's a lot of noise going around, almost like screaming at us saying that, hey, we got a little bit of a top, and it is also a new year. So I want you to kind of go in with some kid gloves on your money, because this thing can turn around relatively quick. Now, the reason why I'm thinking like that is because the dollar has been getting very whooped, right? And when it gets whooped, it has a tendency on doing some very interesting things, right? The first whooping was, this is all of 2025. All right. So with this whole entire move with all of 2025, now 2026 is stopping right here. Now we got two things that can happen. Either we come back to pandemic levels, which is like that W pattern that made the dollar shoot up. Right here it is the Ukraine war, just to kind of keep that in mind. All right. And right now we resetted the dollar all the way to the Ukraine war. So if we restarted all the way back down to the Ukraine war, then where does it go next? What's the game plan? So now let's go ahead and look at some of these tickers. So let's start back over with Apple, right? So if we're starting to reset and the market's going to reset, then that means this could be our dead cat bounce, and we're going to get ourselves this blow off top that is our order block that's going to put some pressure. So look for a peak out. And I won't be surprised if next week we start up, hey, what it do? Right? I won't be surprised that we started up to the upside. I won't be surprised at that. But if we start to show some weakness around 265, 270 on Apple, just be prepared. There might be sweeping liquidity, and we haven't been back to these levels since August of 2025. And there's not a lot of good news out there. There's not. All right, let's go ahead and keep this going. Maybe let's find something that's out there. Well, this is another example that I gave this to y'all a few weeks back, saying that Intel could get back up into that upper register here. Got a solid breakout for the year out of that $39, and then you can kind of see we just hit that psychological level, $50, right? And that was one I was very curious about. We got to like 54, 54.60, but that does not mean that we are going to go ahead and go all the way down to the downside, because Intel did return money to shareholders. That's what you want to have. And also at the end of the day, they are guiding a little bit better along the way. Not much, right? Oh, actually, no, they're guiding worse. That's like, oh, I thought it was better. I just realized the decimal point. Yeah, because they were looking for 0.08. I thought it was 0.12. No, it's 0.012. Look for possible continuation of sell-off, because at the end of the day, that could be the blow-off top that's pushing us down to that downside. Let's go ahead and keep this going. I want to try to give you as much tickers as possible before I get out of here. Another one, Capital One Finance. I did kind of call this out on the floor, kind of breaking down the fact that we had a massive move to the downside last week, and it is breaking out of a key area when I was looking at the 245, 250 level. So looking at Capital One Finance, there's a strong possibility we could get Capital One to test around this level. Now, it is a little far removed right now, so when I mean it's going to test there is more benefit to wait for it to get to 210 and try to play the reversal than for you to try to play it to 210. I think this is where we're going to go ahead and turn right back around and go back up to the upside, unless something very astounding comes in and start to really put some pressure on the market, because I do expect, let me see one more setting on my fibs. Yeah, we're under 219. It's dangerous, I would say, at the open, and this is this is going to be very, very dangerous as far as a move, but I'm leaning on that way. Go ahead and put it on the board. We're talking about 219, and we're going to take some puts. I'm assuming that when we get to that 200, 201, that's going to be the true bounce. Yes, 210 could be the bounce, but that's the risk that we chose. And we could go ahead and see if we can get to 201. Now, what would my stop loss be? Instead of the 229, I will probably go with like 227. But if you want to be more risk adverse, you could go with 229, so that way you can go ahead and play it to the downside. You may get 174 if you get some $200 puts. It depends on the momentum in itself. Can you tell I'm recording, please? All right, so let's go ahead and keep this going. Capital One Finance looks very interesting. I like that one. All right, Interactive Broker, I just have it there for charting purposes. Race for nostalgic reason. Datadog. Now, this one I did call out a while back. This one is doing exactly what I was expecting for it to do. And I think it's at its base. I think it's really at its base. It is at 2025 levels in June. And I think the head and shoulders is over. I know it looks so very crude and everything else, but again, it's about the market responding. It looked like it. I thought it was. It kind of followed. It did its job, and now I'm looking for this to kind of come down a little bit further. Looking for 108 and 96, but this horn tide push right back up to test some of the sell side liquidity has been mitigating some of the stuff that they were like. If I'm selling, I don't like the fact that you just stopped out my friends, right? So I'll be in from here, and if this stops out, then you're probably not going to get any more selling pressure to this side. We are sitting right on top of a bullish order block, so it's going to be very fun to go ahead and get that relatively moved. So we'll see how, yeah, very, very strong order block. I think that's all built in this price action here. We're going to have to see. All right, let's go ahead and keep this going. We got Datadog, right? Now, this one I announced over my Discord. If you want to get more information on my Discord, by all means, just go ahead and DM me, JD_the Great, on Instagram and all your social media platforms. but I posted this on the Discord with anticipation. Yeah, I'm anticipating a good strong move to the downside based on the parameters. Let me see. Let's go ahead and go with a 2-week chart, and I'm going to go ahead and mark this off something like this. Again, this is probably going to be something that you're going to have to play with and find a good footing. Let the momentum grab you. I want to see if we can play this down to at least TP1. Listen, do not turn around and play into TP2, because TP2, we already see where it is. It's going to bring you all the way back to March, and that's going to be very, very difficult to do so. But I think there's just a little bit more room. At the very least, maybe 173, but if it falls real strong, I think there's going to be a lot of buyers around 144, 150. So the high risk would be Reddit to $82. It does look like an M pattern though, right? Let's be completely frank at what we see in the chart, and that's why I'm like really liking this, because if we take this whole entire move, we got this peak, we got the center pivot, that's your lower low, lower high. I'll get back there, go back, right? And we got ourselves a nice little push to the downside here. Now the funny thing about it, if you want to measure the move that can extend from here, then you want to go ahead and take the shorter side. I've always teach this to my folks. If you haven't been in, if you don't have a trading community that you don't trust, you know what I'm saying, then come check us out. Check us out on JD_the_great on Instagram. More information can be sent over to you. And I want to get a nice little 50% movement of this area. Let me go ahead and mark this off with my levels. So I'm thinking 125 max. That will be your M pattern movement. And then if it gets the rest, cool. That would bring us all the way down to TP1. Listen, TP2, I don't think Red is going to go ahead and be completely destroyed. I don't think that there's going to be a major problem in itself. But I will play it to TP1. I think that's going to be the play. Actually, this might be my play of the week in itself. I'll probably go with some March contracts and see if I can get myself a good contract that I'm happy about. If you want more information to that, hit up my Discord and I can go ahead and get you more details on which contract to relatively choose. All right, let's go ahead and keep this going. AMD, blow off top, right? Let's go back over to a 1 week. Look at that. We got an inside bar on an upward movement. And the upward movement is just literally getting ready for a potential reversal here. Inside bars usually just goes and just tells you buyers are no longer there. They cannot take any more highs. They cannot hold it above the previous close. This is screaming that there's potential to the downside. Now the problem is we're at this center pivot, but that means if it fails, we're coming back to AMD 164. What is going on here? And I don't want to come in with all types of bearish momentum. Oh, what just happened here? Oh, I did that. Oh, Lord. Hold on. I think something just happened to my TradingView. Bear with me. That's what happens when you get new technology. Yeah, it just froze it. Hold on. Okay, there we go. So we're talking about... Okay.
What?
Oh, damn it. And that's another thing that you got to understand. Now that I switched over to Mac for this, all the stuff is completely the opposite. Is it? That's what it is. My shortcut keys is throwing me off. I'm trying to do it like it's a PC. So can we come back down to this whole entire level? Can we come to 165? No, I don't think so. If we come down to 165, that is literally screaming that the market is completely tanking at this point. You're talking about AMD giving up August. This order block right here should hold us up. Okay, I got a plan for y'all. Look at this area right here. I think this one is going to be relatively solid. I think we could get a nice little hold over here because you already can see what did they do when they came down here. They bounced, right? So assuming that all things are equal and this stays, I would call it almost, nah, you know what? Let me call it bullish. I'm going to call it bullish. I still think it's bullish. So we got ourselves a nice little bearish momentum that's up here. And we're playing between two different order blocks. I'm not saying play it to this level. I'm saying when it touched 226, you could get a nice little bounce possibly because this order block is going to be really, really tough for AMD to go ahead and fail down. Let me see this. Oh yeah, look at that. Look at that Stoke. That Stoke and that MACD wants to stay bullish, but if it turns around and does its job, then we could get ourselves a nice little push to the upside, and then we could go ahead and figure out what we're going to do when we get back up here. If it fails to break through 267, whoever jumped in from here to play it back up to 260, 55, 57, they're going to sell. Everybody going to sell. And guess what else has right here? February 3rd, Tuesday is earnings. I don't suggest you carrying it over to earnings, but if you are going to be risky, wait for that thing to touch 267 and sell the crap out of it. Wait for it to get to 226 and buy the dip. There's your rub right there. So I gave y'all Reddit. I gave y'all AMD. Let's see what else we got. Amazon, I don't like where it is. I think it's going to be ranging for a while. Now, this thing can explode to the upside, but I'd rather not try to find out. So I'm going to bow out gracefully and leave it where it lies. All right, let's go ahead and get over here. AVGO. Now, AVGO is another one I think is going to go ahead and continue to the downside. Let me come over to the monthly to kind of point out what I'm talking about. I saw this last month, and I was like, let me just take some AVGO puts. But then I was like, no, I don't like to carry things into the new year. So that way I don't get myself kind of caught up on that almost like that fear of missing out type of thing, because if that thing pulls back on me, then I'm going to be feeling some type of way. And I don't want to turn around and be upset at AVGO. I've made some really, really good plays on it. And me and Tesla are not friends because it tends to misbehave. I already lost another $50 on Tesla when it's all said and done. But with AVGO, we could see right here, this is starting to show signs that they can get more lower lows. Now, we got a whole bunch of imbalances here that they need to go ahead and test. I think we can get into the 250s, but we came back for this fair value gap, and that's what I was saying earlier. Most of these order blocks and fair value gaps and everything else, they give you a bounce. They give you a bounce on the first touch. Let's do this, right? This was a remaining amount. Oh my God, these keys. I keep on doing it. I'm going to figure it out. All right. We got this remaining of this fair value gap right here. It's very tiny. You won't see it. Let me zoom in for those that's on mobile device so that way you can see what I'm talking about. When we did this whole entire move in the month of December, they came for that fair value gap. They pushed it up. Then the new year starts. Not only did they push it up, they went ahead and gapped it up, came back here, and it was like, no mas. We're coming back down. And they came and filled this fair value gap. Now, is this bears in control, or is this just a shot in the bow saying, hey, we're going to go ahead and really start to push this up? Now, the month just ended with a very, very long wick. So that's going to put some question marks there. But if it fails to get back above 360, actually, let's call it 350. If it fails to get above 350 next month, maybe even March, look for AVGO to go ahead and test the fair value gap down to 280 or somewhere around that realm, because that means these buyers here took their profits somewhere between here and there, and now the sellers are starting to get the signal that there's going to be a push to the downside, and they are starting to act accordingly. All right, so just keep that in mind. So look out for 350, sell at 350 if it shows any weakness, buy at 217 if it comes back again, because that's going to be the bounce of the fair value gap. But be in there for a good time, not a long time, because right now this is our close here, and if it comes back here, that means they just erased whatever pushed us up towards the end. And you could go to the daily and you'll see what I mean. That is a lot of junk right here, and that could cause some problems. All right, let's get back over to the weekly. I'm going to see, what time is it? 517. Let me give y'all like 3 more. Let me run through this. Bank of America, I think this thing could go down more. You can see that I set up a trade to this downside already. I did not take this, but I did share this with the community. And yeah, it went from 55 to 52. If you did it right with the right contract, you could get anywhere between 40% to as much as 100% at the very least. You probably pull back to like 20% because of this pushback if you went ahead and held that a little too long. This one is Core Weave. This one I kind of wanted to play it. I did not play this at all, only because I felt like Core Weave was already a little heated, and you can see as soon as we touched that fair value gap, what did they do? Sell off. Cisco, order block is kind of fist fighting in here. I don't fight with children in the middle of the schoolyard. Google, Toppy. very toppy. I think they want to get to 350 before they drop it, but this is just way too vertical. Way too vertical. Kind of looks like the pandemic recovery here. It's no, I don't like it. I really don't like it. It's for y'all to try to play this to the upside, and I don't want y'all to play to the downside. Wait for it to give you some type of signal. We got bearish divergences that's yet to play out. Maybe they're holding on to something. Hood. Now, I was talking to a good friend of mine. This is not cute. This is not cute. He's already in some cover calls. Shout out to Rick. It doesn't look good. Now, I did set up something for the play to the downside. That was part of the reason why he did the cover calls. Me and Hood is not too much friends, but I did play Uber on the other side of it, and that one worked out well. As far as the disruptive tech, I kind of got them in the watch list. But with this Hood, I don't know if y'all can see it. Can y'all see the pattern? There's a pattern there. And there's two patterns. It just depends on what type of eyes that you have. And I try to make sure people can see what they see, because if you can see it, then that means you can react and you can get into the action. So without further ado, let me go ahead and break it down to you. There's a couple people that's going to have their bullish perspective, and they're going to say, well, Jeff, this is basically a common bull flag. We got this your pullback, and this is going to be an extension right here. If you throw some fibs on that, you're going to go ahead and get a nice little move saying that this is our retracement into close to the golden ratio, which is absolutely correct. But here's the thing that you're also realizing. There is a momentum shift that's happening that they allowed to happen because there was a lot of selling pressure every time it got close to 150. And that, my dear, is something called a head and shoulder, right? And that move right there is letting me know that there is a push to the upside. Yeah, exactly. And that's what those head and shoulders do, because the head and shoulders is like, hey, what's going on? This is a higher low. All you have to do is buy this dip right here. And guess what? We can push right on up to the upside. That's what it was screaming here. And it was like, wait, you telling me we can't get the highs? What about the order block? Can we get the order block? It said, no, you can't have the order block either. And now we're starting to break this structure. So whoever got in here is not happy, because either A, they took a small profit or a small loss, and they're out of there. So now we got ourselves a nice little extension. Do y'all know the measure move? It's the head to the shoulder. I'm sorry, to the neckline, right? So now we got a head to the neckline. We get a breakout, which is this area right here. That's our breakout. We throw some fibs on it. And when we throw the fibs, let's get you down a little lower right there. So we want 50% of the move. We're talking about $75 hood. Oh my God, what is going on here? Why would there be a $75 hood? Oh my God. Hold on. I'll tell you, this Macintosh is going to go ahead and throw me off. Yes, I said Macintosh. I'm showing my age. I keep hitting the wrong button. I'm trying to put levels, and it's Control H. There we go. $75, right? And that $75 is going to erase a lot of momentum. And if y'all notice, crypto is also getting this butt whip too. So actually, let's do that too. Let's go to BTC USD on Coinbase. Let's go take a peek over there. Warren Buffett, I want to say it had to have been mid-July. He basically screamed out to everybody saying, oh yeah, I could see Bitcoin get to 75,000. And this was before we made the all-time high into the 120,000, the second time. So the goal behind when you're marking off your levels is so that way you can be able to make a plan around it. I don't want you to do anything relatively crazy. And if you look at it, and I warned a lot of traders, I said, this thing looking like they want to make a bear flag. This thing, and if that's a bear flag, and shout out to all my pattern recognizing folks, you got a nice little extension here. And if we're going to go ahead and take 50% of the pole, let's go ahead and bring this bad boy down. We're talking about Bitcoin coming back to $49,000. Someone would be upset, but that's just going to tell you that those trusts came in as a Molotov cocktail, not a support of Bitcoin. And that is relatively scary. But anyways, let's not go ahead and get into the darker side. We could get a nice little bounce off of that 786 right there, and all they do is just get a nice little extension because we do have an order block that is sitting right here, and it will not be easy for us to just fly right through this area and level. So consider this a very bullish area for you to get a bounce. Now, Warren Buffett said 75,000. It could be liquidity bear trappy moving in a way. And we probably could come down to like 70,000 and then do the bounce. So just be vigilant and make sure you do your due diligence and mark off your levels. Because if you mark off your levels, you can go ahead and plan accordingly. I would say look for a reversal somewhere between 72 and 70,000 if it starts to fall real deep into the 75. And if you're saying, no, there's no way it's going to get to 75, the low for this week, now that we started a new week, is 75,644. They're going to test that 75. I'm just letting you know that now. So don't just go ahead and sleep on it. It doesn't look like an M pattern. Yeah, it doesn't look like a bull flag. Yeah, there's a lot of patterns inside of here. But either way, it's going to be tough to get through here. Could this be the area where a lot of Bitcoin trusts piled in? A lot of retail traders piled in? Did they manipulate? I hate to use the word manipulate. Did they take money off the table in large tranches that basically added to a sweep of liquidity, and then they bought the dip around 75? Hence the reason why Warren Buffett was already tipped off. I'm sorry, I can't say that. He's retired now. Let me be nice. Was he looking at the charts in a certain way where he relatively thought that they got to test this level, which they are, and we got close to the order block, and they did, and they couldn't hold, and they came back? Could it be that? Very, very possible. So like I said, at the end of the day, my goal is to just be a person that points you in the right direction. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not a fiduciary, but I'm telling you this right now. When I send out a signal, it tends to at least look very interesting at the very least. And if you properly do your trade plan on top of it, you'll generate some type of return. All right, let's go over into Hood. That could, because you got to remember, Hood, Coinbase, all have exposure in Bitcoin. They actually have those assets, hence the reason how they're able to exchange in such real time versus waiting for Bitcoin to do some of the things that they do. So if the valuation drops off a cliff, it will bring their valuation down. Now, you can see there is a gap down here right before their earnings that was really, really strong, and they smashed the earnings. Did they take profit off the table? Let the charts tell you. Okay. All right. What time is it? All right. Let me give y'all one more, and we'll probably wrap this up at 5:30. Microsoft, dead in the water. Sorry, I'm not going to do that. I like Microsoft, even though I just switched over to Mac. But that's very ironic that my whole entire motherboard freaking crashes on my PC as Microsoft takes a nosedive at the same time. I guess that I should have took that as a signal. Anyways, moving on. So we got ourselves a nice little strong move. Let's go ahead and kind of mark this off. I like what market dominance is signaling over here. There is a possibility, and I'm going to go ahead and draw it like this, that there could be a pullback. If you want to go ahead and do a day trade, go ahead and mark this off. These are my levels that I'm curious about. Of course, entry, anything around that 420, 430 level. What's that? 429.20. And that could go ahead and be your entry, anything above that. And then you could get a stop loss somewhere around 424, and that'll keep it kind of tight. But the target will be probably 450. If you have a bullish sentiment. Now, they do have to pay out dividends, and they tend to what? Let me go ahead and explain this to y'all. If you haven't been in one of my classes, it's going to be very interesting because when dividends paid out, push up. Dividend payout, a little pullback, but push up. Dividend payout, oh, way push up. Dividend payout, a little bit of a pullback right into there. Tried to push it back up. Did the push back up, but then they did a whole entire massive push because it was Liberation Day. All right, dividend payout, push up. Dividend payout right there, push up, pulled back, and pushed up again. Dividend, yeah, I see the theme. Dividend payout, push up, dividend payout, push up. Yeah, you just got to find your position, and that's not easy to do. If you want to know more classes, go ahead and click the link down below, and I will make sure I help you out with that. But you can see this gap is going to go ahead and trigger that 450 of a target, and if it gets there, it should print something relatively great, and everything that I said as far as bearish momentum is out the window. But that gap is not going to be relatively easy to fill because this is profit taking in its purest form. So ask yourself this question: what's the best way for me to enter? Like I said, 420, 429, that's solid. 430 would be safer, and then probably put your stop loss at the 424 or halfway through it, because that'll be your market structure for the previous day. But I would love for you to go all the way to the weekly, because that's a fair value gap bounce, and that momentum should take you back up to that upside. But you can see it's going to get noisy and choppy up there, so don't do nothing relatively reckless. I did not think I'll speed through Microsoft so fast. Let me give you another one. Micron. Now, if you don't know the story of Micron, this is the one where they are pivoting. They are no longer going to provide any chips for regular consumers to a certain degree. I think that's a mistake. They're going to go full AI optimization, I guess. And then you got companies like like Apple, that's making their RAM modules into complete unified RAM memory, which is freaking crazy in itself. And some people are starting to venture into that. If I'm not mistaken, I want to say either Western Digital. No, I don't think it was them. I don't think it was SanDisk. It was someone is starting to consider getting into that soldered memory ideology. And the whole reason why Apple went in that route of soldering memory into their PCs was to eliminate the exchanging of the devices, so that way they can be able to talk to each other. Are we going to get PCs that's going to imitate that, where you get a unified memory? Especially the fact that all this silicon that's going on, they're trying to make it for other products, aka AI, aka they don't want to do certain, aka they went ahead and made a $225 RAM module go ahead and shoot up to $800 in the open market by saying they refuse to make any more. Again, could be a bubble, but what I see in the chart, that looks like a blow off top for the week, and they could try to recapture that, but you can see nice engulfing on the daily. Lots of profit taking is happening on and on. If we look at the stochastic, that looks like that. Histogram divergences here. Monthly, let's look at the monthly. Still strong. So I'm not saying for you to short it for a long time. I'm just saying look for a good time. So if you plan accordingly, everything would actually pan out in the best form for you. That said, I want to say thank you for taking the time and joining me on this impromptu as I test my equipment. I gotta get all my videos and audio edited again because it's stuck inside of Microsoft junk. Sorry Microsoft, I did not mean that. I did not put a redundant server, which is my mistake, to make sure everything is backed up. I have videos backed up, so you can go ahead and check them out on YouTube of all the insight that I do, especially my Learner's Corner playlist. Check that out so you can learn some basic techniques and fundamentals so you can be a better trader. Don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and the bell button. And the album is out. If you have trouble trading and it's driving you crazy, listen to my album Trading Journal by Kalani Ward. My alter ego is out in all streaming services. It really supports this channel. And I bid you a wonderful and amazing day. Have a great day. Bye-bye.